Hello, everybody, and fellow citizens of the Commonwealth of Virginia. My name is Merle Rutledge, and I'm here to address domestic violence and victims. One thing I have learned throughout the decades by fighting for victims of sex trafficking, rape, those who have lost loved ones to killers, I have learned that there is more to protecting them than just going to court and having them testify against gangsters and monsters and sex traffickers. The toll that it takes on these victims is astronomical. But we also find in our dedicated work that sometimes victims aren't victims. Sometimes they are playing the system as much as they play the groups that fight for them. I, on the other hand, spent my time doing covert operations in which we targeted sex traffickers, pedophiles, killers, and rapists, where law enforcement was limited due to their jurisdictions and, of course, policies that impacted them from locking up these monsters. So after a while, you have a group of individuals that step up and say, we're going to do what the law can't do. We are going to provide the protection that the Victim Witness Protection Program cannot provide. By making sure victims are able to go to court, making sure victims are not harassed and intimidated so they don't testify against certain people. We have even seen families of the accused defame victims as well as go after them, whether in a public place or in places of peace that they know that the victim goes to because, of course, the accused makes them aware. One thing we haven't tolerated is giving up on seeking justice, but we can only do but so much to make sure victims are no longer victims, but they are fighters that take control of their life. During these time periods, especially now, where the world's in crisis, police are limited with resources. Domestic violence has surged out of control, beyond numbers that anybody can really take a true hit at unless they use bold policies and unequivocal action to address the issues that's going on here in Virginia. Our police is limited on what they can do when victims are engaged in social media and the perpetrators are using social media to profit off of prostitution that is forced and by other measures are acts by drugging their victims to the point that they become dependent on the accused. And then they use that to make sure it's weaponized against them if they ever was to go to court, knowing that they are the reasons why this person became this way and that they are not the animal or monster that is made out to be, but a victim that's just accusing them because they are mad at relationships. All sides can be true. That's one thing we have learned. We have seen victims say that they are ready to leave and find any reason to continue to stay. That's the sad reality that all these groups have to deal with. We have even seen victims turn on the very groups and individuals. I can say that for myself, that has tried to help them to get out of situations at risk to our life and safety while getting others involved. For those who continue to seek attention from these groups, but continue to go back to the predators. We can't do anything about grown folks. When grown people want to stay in an abusive situation, we hate to say that we have to write them off or let the situation continue, but we cannot do only but what somebody asks, because then we are forcing them the same way that these other predators or monsters are doing. Sometimes people are just who they are. They are used to toxicity. Their life has been constantly around abuse, so they don't know anything about peace and joy. Their peace and joy is being around the abuser and hoping that they don't smack them one day or make them do anything that will compromise their integrity and their values. It's a sad reality that those groups, as well as myself and others who take the ultimate sacrifice to make sure that victims aren't victims, they have a fighter that's fighting for them. These groups go to Commonwealth attorneys that have decided not to press charges and advocate for them to move forward with charges because sometimes they just don't care. They only sometimes care when certain groups come forward to say that this issue must be addressed, or we will seek other options when it comes down to a new Commonwealth attorney being elected. But far too often, it's easier said than done. The reality is these Commonwealth attorneys, as well as these judges, are also sometimes playing their part in the sex trafficking and intimidation and harassment as they go to court following restraining orders and more, and we see victims re-victimized again as their predators are allowed to continue their harassment because the system is bought off and paid for. It seems like unless you have a lawyer, you don't have rights, and that's unfair. And I'm going to do something to change that. I already have a plan. But we have to do something about things now, because me being elected may not be on time for those who are about to be killed tomorrow. And we try to prevent those as much as possible. But of course, there's no system or situation that's perfect. Every situation we encounter is complicated. Many of these people are willing to kill to protect their livelihood and their profits. So our response has to be as equivalent. Instead of killing you, we're just going to destroy you 1,000 times. And we have done that 1,000 times. But the problem is, it's millions upon millions. We are seeing that at the border coming in to walk into the same doom that we try to take just a couple of individuals out. And that's the sad reality that we face. If you're a victim of abuse and domestic violence, please leave. You get the option, take it up. I read the newspapers all the time that says a domestic violence situation that have been ongoing, and a lot of time frames I have to see families on TV saying, I tried to get them away from each other, and now it's too late. Somebody's in a body bag and the other person's on their way to prison for the rest of their lives. But it's not always the case. Some people only get a few years because they get a plea deal because they can manipulate what has happened. But I also tell grown-ups, you have to make a decision, because with minors, we can go to war with because there's no excuse. But when you're a grown-up, you have to take responsibility and ownership. A lot of these problems come from the fact that you continue to let the problem happen. Walking away is never easy, but also the options that you put in your life makes things complicated. And sometimes that is exactly what these accused need to keep you around and continuing their abuse of you, mentally, physically, and financially. They know as long as you are dependent on them because you're scared to risk life without them, you're so dependent that you have became a toy for your abuser, not a human being. And nobody deserves to be a toy to somebody who doesn't love them, but only really hates them, but they are in love with the fact of seeing you deal with that hate. Stockholm Syndrome is very real. Any group or individual who works in this business know the victim can't go back to the abuser at any time for reasons we don't understand. But at the same time frame, we can't save everybody. I don't put that pressure on my organization. I don't put that pressure on myself. We just do the best that we can. And we hope by me being your next Virginia governor, we can actually do something real about ending sex trafficking. We can get the police the resources they need so they can attack this head on that goes through social media more. I hear police talk about it all the time. We don't have the resources to handle what goes on the internet or the dark web. We don't have the resources to go into people's phones and extract the data that we need to. We have to sometimes wait for the FBI and more. Realistically, we have extracted data from phones that has helped solve murders, helped solve rapes. We have gotten information and recordings that have helped lead to convictions of those who tried to twist the story that they're innocent, but we hear on the tape and the audio nothing but guilt. The fact that we have to do more than anybody else because we have to look at three sides of the story. One side of the victim, the other side of the accused, and then we have the truth. I even have had people falsely accused of rape, murder, and more. And we still fight for them and advocate for them because the justice system hasn't caught up. And that's the sad reality that we have a lot of people in jail because the person accusing them acted with bad motive. I would love to see those who accuse somebody of rape and murder and they are found to be manipulating and misrepresenting the facts serve the same exact time as if that person was charged with the same crime too. But the fact of the matter is, it doesn't always work that way when prosecutors try to use their power and influence to further victimize the victim. And you would think they'll be there to protect them. It's just the reality of this world. Life isn't fair. We can't expect the justice system to even be fair. The only thing we can do is the best that we can while we are living to make sure we do our part to end sex trafficking and pedophilia and the senseless force to make somebody do something against their will and live on those nightmares every single day and relive those encounters every single day. This is the life that sometimes people choose. It's not pretty, people. It's not. We have to do everything to make sure we also are going after the right person, but also have to make sure that the victim's rights is protected as much as possible. Their safety is number one, but also who is the victim when the accused is being lied upon by the victim that we thought was a victim. That's the reality we are in. So I know some people may say, well, Merrill, you have certain problems with victims that go up against accused. I have a problem with adults that act like they don't have common sense. When you're an adult, you know better. I can't save adults. I can't. I can tell, like everybody else, we can give you advice, we can suggest, we can recommend that you walk away. We can even say we're going to help in the process, but you got to do your own work. You got to do your own work as well. Because when you're adult, you make adult decisions. When you make a mess, you're going to have to learn to clean it up. And starting over is tough, but you're going to have to. There's no option or easy way when you have made your life complicated. Because sometimes we let people in our life that are toxic. And we think things are going to get better. I'm no different than that. I've been in plenty of relationships that I thought you could save. Doesn't mean you can save them. Doesn't mean you were physically abused or verbally abused or whatever. Maybe it's just time for you both to walk away and move on with your lives and see if you can find peace and comfort by yourself first before you bring others in. Because you have to have time to heal when you are in a situation like that and coming out of it. It's no good to move forward too fast because all you're going to do is bring that abuser and what he has done to you to the next person. The sad reality is the victims that get abused sometimes become the abuser, far more often, where they use exactly how they got manipulated into a situation to prey on others. That's the saddest reality of the work we do, is to know that can happen, and it has happened. And we're like, you're acting just like the person who you claim abused you. It sucks to hear the truth. It does. But somebody got to tell you. That's what I do. I tell people like it is. I don't cut corners. I don't sugarcoat. Some people need this real talk. When you talk to victims of domestic violence and abuse, talk to them real. But don't give them an option. Make it black or white. I'll help you walk away, but you can't walk back. You give out an option. That's the same thing abusers do. They give out options. But guess what? They're going to take one or the other. That's how you have to be to save yourself, especially if you're in this line of work. And just know, death is going to come for you. People are going to want to kill you. You're looking at the everyday life where you see bikers against sex trafficking out of Danville, or you see others who constantly advocate against sex trafficking and try to make the laws even stricter to stop this abuse from going on and closing out these loopholes. Death is on your back. You don't have to worry about being beat up, because the very people you're going after are the very people who are public officials that would do anything and everything to protect themselves at the sacrifice of you. I know this far too well, and that's why I fight and hit hard. I'm uncompromising to my position, and I refuse to back down. The reason is because I got only one life to live. I'd rather live it knowing that I fought to the death for the right reasons, not be on my knees for the wrong reasons. So to everybody across Virginia, I'm fighting for you. Just know that. I guarantee you that if I become your next Virginia governor, a lot of these problems that's going on is going to be closed out, because you're going to have somebody who isn't scared to make the bold decision, make the tough call, who isn't here to be politically correct, here to do a job that you expect me to do and live by the word that I campaigned on. Being about you, not about them politicians. So to Virginia, Merle Rutledge is back. Merle Rutledge is fighting for you. Regardless of whether you like me or not, I'm not fighting for just Democrats. I'm not fighting for just Republicans, because we all in this mess together. I'm waking up the heart and soul of Virginia away from the toxicity and the scams and the cons of these politicians. We are hating each other to the point we can't help each other or know what's going on with each other to prevent things that are happening with each other that is causing us further to be divided, torn apart, away from our family and friends, because we cannot get past the fact that this is not the direction we need to be going in. And you gotta accept that. Democrat or Republican, independent, you gotta accept that. So God bless you and God bless America. Merle Rutledge for Virginia Governor 2025. Standing tall, standing bold, telling it like it is. Ask them other politicians to get this real with you. They'll hang up the phone with you. We'll pick it up and say it's time to get to fighting. God bless you and God bless America.